We are live. We're live. Okay, so today, can you guys hear me still? Am I seeing? Yeah, okay. It looks like it's making noise. All right, today we're going to look at keynotes. Let me save this so I don't break it. Revit, Noteblocks, and keynotes. So keynotes and note blocks, two different ways to sort of add notes to a drawing. This is a very traditional way to add notes on engineering drawings and things like that. At the end of it, what we're going to look at is what is going to be required for all of the Maui/Big Island projects. And this is in an effort to start documenting and communicating what is kind of left open-ended for the field operations teams. Yeah, Mandy and I have been talking about this a lot on kind of how we want to make sure, well, detailers have to make a lot of decisions every day. Okay, and communicating those decisions is not so easy because there's so much information that goes into a shop drawing or even a design drawing for that matter. Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through, I'm going to build a keynote tag and a note block just to kind of show you guys real quickly how they're made and how they function, and then we'll get into actually how they're used. We are ultimately going to be using note blocks on our shop drawings, and but I want you guys to know how keynotes work too. Okay, so what are keynotes? Basically, keynotes. Let me load a keynote in here. I don't even have it loaded. I started fresh this morning. So a keynote is just a symbol on a drawing, and it's related to an external file that has the notes in it. So I'm just going to save this, and we'll call this our keynotes file. Put it on my desktop, and then basically you just put in the number and then tab. So this is note 1, 2 tab. This is note 2. So it's a tab delimited text file. Okay, so let me save this. And then in Revit, what we do is we go to the annotate tab actually, and we go, there's an actual keynote button over here, and we got to look at the settings. Okay, and basically what we're doing is we're pathing, it's like an XREF or a link, we're pathing to that text file. So if I browse to my desktop, we can find my keynotes file that I just made, and it says it's loaded successfully. And you always want to use absolute file paths, especially since we're sharing across the network and stuff. So whenever you post these, make sure they're in a network location if multiple people are going to need access, and make sure the pathing kind of works out. There's nothing worse than going to, spending like 2 days on a set of drawings with somebody, and then the keynotes get reloaded at the last minute and everything kind of goes sideways on you. It is not awesome. Yeah. Just to kind of say the least. The other thing to kind of be aware of is the numbering method. So we've had keynote files before for like a military project, for instance, that had like over 150 or 200 keynotes in it. No matter what sheet that keynote is on, it's like an absolute number. So it will always go up to like 250 or however many notes you have. If it's by sheet, the software will automatically count up the number of keynotes and assign a number to the schedule that is only relative to that sheet. So this is actually a little bit more common, this by sheet method. It does get confusing when you start looking at numbers and switching between pages and things like that. And again, I don't think that keynotes are so awesome, and I'll kind of show you why. I mean, they're awesome, but I think that note blocks are a little bit better, okay? So we'll click OK. We'll just say by number, and then I'm just going to put some random families in here. Whatever's loaded into here, whatever's loaded into this. So if we wanted to do a keynote on whatever project we have, we would say there's actually 3 different types of keynotes. You guys will never get into material keynote here. Basically, if you look at an element and we go into the type properties of an element, there's this keynote property. And this is what the material keynote reads. Okay, this is something for architects where they kind of link something up to an external file like keynotes, but it relates to their spec. If you've ever seen like a wall section with a bunch of weird nomenclature style numbers and things on it, that's what it's for. Generally, we don't use keynotes or material keynotes or element keynotes. This also will relate to element keynotes as well. Yeah, and you just don't want to use those. Really, what you want to use is user keynotes. Okay. So if I say, hey, I want to create a user keynote, it's basically a tag. Okay, if you think about it like that, I'm going to put my keynote in and it's going to ask me which keynote this is related to. I'm going to say this is keynote 2. Okay, and maybe I want to go ahead and tag this one, and this is keynote 1. Okay, pretty basic functionality in general on what we're doing. It is a little slow when you're actually tagging hundreds of these keynotes on a project, because every time you cannot copy these keynotes. Like if I try to copy this, it gives me an error, and that's because it's attached to this host. Okay, so if you're in a model and something happens and you move this, the keynote goes with it. That's kind of a pro, in my opinion. But if this thing gets deleted, your keynote goes with it. And that's kind of a con, in my opinion, as far as pros and cons go. So this keynote itself acts like a tag, and it works like a tag, except you have the extra added step to go in and pick which note is associated to it. And if you have 200 line items in your keynote text file, it can get kind of cumbersome. You can dial in the number on your keypad, but you still have to press OK. You cannot press enter. So it's a little bit cumbersome at times. Using keynotes and stuff like that, yeah. As far as number schemes go, I mean, you could really put in whatever kind of numbers you want. Again, all you're really doing is looking at a tab delimited, or yeah, tab delimited text file. So I could go ahead and put in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9. I don't think you can have the same numbers in a row. And then here's where we're already running into a problem. Yeah, we didn't put 0 in front of all of these. Yeah, so kind of keep that stuff in mind. Looks like I skipped 4. That'll be all right. Right, and then if I save this, ba-boom, and then we go back to our keynote settings and we reload this, keynote table loaded successfully, you go ahead and tag this here. So it's not uncommon for me from a workflow perspective to go ahead and keynote a bunch of items and go back and update my text file afterwards. Yeah, so you'll have a bunch of blank rows in here like this, and as you kind of go down and you keynote the numbers, you know, you're texting in your drawing or whatever, you can fill in the text file as you go, and and then you can reload it later and it will kind of show up. Yeah, so that's keynoting specifically. Now, if we want to schedule these keynotes, because we're going to actually make a sheet, and I should load a title block into here real quick. Doesn't even matter which one. I'll just pick this one for fun. Now let's pick a different one. Oh, we'll pick this one. I'll show you guys. I've been working on this title block. I'm not done with it yet, but this is for the sheet metal side. Duct. So I've been working on this title block. It's coming. Anyway, so if we want to make keynotes for a sheet, I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop that view onto the sheet here. It's got our air devices and stuff that we put on there. Now, as far as schedules go, we need to go here and say we need to make a new, what is it? It's been a while since I did this. View schedule. Oh, it's a legend, sorry. New keynote legend, it's not a schedule. So for keynotes, it's a legend. We'll just call this keynote legend. And really, these are the only 2 values you can do. I think you can combine these together. Don't know why you'd want to. Maybe it's useful. And then under filter here, this is the filter by sheet thing. So in the original section, you know, where we loaded our keynote and everything, we said by sheet, here's where you would select by sheet. And then your sorting and grouping is always by key value. And you do not want to itemize every instance on here. I'll show you what happens when we do, and we'll just click OK for now. So basically, what it's doing is it is grabbing all of the keynotes on this sheet, and see we have 2 number 1s and 2 number 2s. The other thing that happened was I went in and I changed the number on the keynote from 1 to 01 and 2 to 02, so it can't even find this reference anymore. It's like a lookup table. So we have to go in and you have to change this here and change it back to 1. Yeah, and I don't know if you can do that on multiple of these. Yeah, you can just drag and drop down. So we'll change these to 2 just for fun. 02, ba-boom. Yeah, so we have 3 01s and 2 02s, and you can see on here 3 01s and 2 02s. Now, this is what happens when you itemize every line item or every instance on the sorting and grouping page. If we uncheck this and click OK, right, it combines all the line items together, which is generally what you kind of want out of a note block scenario. Yeah, you want this to kind of only show the key value one time because we're referencing something on a sheet. Okay, and this is kind of how it works. You would any sheet view, plan view, whatever you got, you know, you would just go in, keynote all your stuff, make your schedule, or I'm sorry, your legend, and then drag and drop this onto your sheet, and then those are the notes for your view. Okay, so again, pros and cons just to cover this. The functionality of this is like a tag. So if things get deleted or moved around, your keynote will go with it. Yeah, if you always have to maintain an external text file, which at times is cumbersome as well, you know, and also too, if you change your numbering scheme, you have to go back and repath everything. So there are pros and cons to this setup. I don't know. I prefer note blocks. Yeah. Are there any questions on keynotes at all? This is kind of simple stuff, but it's good to understand what's happening. Yeah. No questions? Okay. So now let's go ahead and look at note blocks, and this is where all the money's at. Okay, so a note block is actually a symbol family. It's a generic annotation family. So I'm just going to close all the other views. We'll go File, New, Family, and this is going to be in the annotations and a generic annotation. So we're just going to build this from scratch, okay? Whenever you make a generic annotation, you got to just delete that red text there. Yeah, it doesn't really matter, okay? So we're going to create a label, which is basically creating a tag when you do this, and it needs to read something. And this is kind of how you set it up. So we're going to say that this is going to read our number. And this is going to be a text parameter, and it's going to be instance. Okay, you do not want a type for every single number that you have. And we'll put this in here, and then our preview is just going to be an XX for 2 numbers. Okay, and really I do that just to kind of make sure I understand how to get this kind of centered in the space so we can build our little symbol on the outside of it. Okay, so this right here is going to read our number parameter, and then keynotes traditionally always have a symbol around them. I like to use masking regions because they'll hide whatever's under them. I don't like text without masking regions. It makes it hard to read at times. You just have to be careful about where you place your text and make your drawings look nice, yeah? So let's say that our standard keynote, we'll have a couple different types of keynotes, and I'll kind of show you here in a second. We'll make our standard keynote a 6-sided object, and we'll kind of make it just big enough to encompass 2 pieces of, or 2 letters, or 2 numbers, yeah? And you can see how the background on this label is kind of masking this. So let's go ahead and set our leader border offset to 1/256. We'll set our text to 764 at a 0.8 width factor. This is pretty common for most of the text that we have in our models, okay? And then I'll scale this up slightly so it's not being masked by the text there. That looks pretty good. Ba-boom. Okay, cool. So now we have what are we calling this? A note block object. So we'll call this note block. Ba-boom. And then we need a couple other things, and I'll show you why here in a second. So when we had a keynote, we had a number, and then we also had a note that went with it. So let's go ahead and make that. We'll say we need a note, and this is going to be text, and this will also be instance-based. And then we need one more thing, and that's going to be our filter. And that's what is going to allow us to start separating these keynotes and note blocks out on different sheets for different tasks. Okay, and then after we kind of load this in, I show you how it works. We'll make a new type, and I'll kind of show you what we want to do at Dorvin specifically on our shop drawings to start calling out RFIs and stuff. So let's make a new parameter. We're going to call this we'll just call this our note filter. Our note filter. We'll just say filter instead, just to make it easy. And this is going to be a type based parameter, and it'll be text, okay? And wherever these get sorted at, it doesn't really matter. There's not that many parameters on this thing, yeah? And then I'm just gonna make a new type real quick, and we'll call this notes to begin with. Okay, so our first type is notes, and I'm gonna make our filter match. And this will all kind of come together here in a second. So hit apply, okay, and then we'll save this bad boy, and we will load this into our project. Now, the first thing you will notice is that when you go to put this in, it's literally a symbol. I mean, that's really all it is, but it allows you to fill things in, okay? So you can either grab it and fill it in here, you know, you can call this note 100 if you want, and it updates it or whatever. Normally you won't have over 100. If you have over 100 notes on a couple sheets, I think you got some problems, but we'll just say 05. And then our note here is this air device is pretty, yeah, just because I like pretty things, yeah. So this is our note and our note block. It's associated to this. If we want to add a leader on this, you know, we just click add leader, ba-boom, kind of put it in here, and then you know, you can add an arrowhead to it. I always like the filled 20. The filled 30 is kind of like me. It's a little bit too chubby. And the 15 is kind of too skinny. Yeah, so the 20 is kind of the Goldilocks of arrowheads, in my opinion. It's right in the middle. Okay, and the cool thing about this is you can actually copy these wherever you need. Say we had another one that we wanted to put right next to it. To have multiple notes together, we can go ahead and just change the text and say it is also blue, because I like the color blue. Yeah. So when we go read this, we have a pretty blue air device based on what our notes are showing. And again, you can copy these around. It makes it really easy to do that. Ba-boom, and kind of just drag your arrows in, just like text, like you would put text on a drawing, okay? This actually really cleans up your drawings if you don't have a bunch of text everywhere. And to be honest with you, if you're working on a military job with a BIM standard, you're technically not supposed to have floating text notes on your drawing everywhere. Everything is supposed to be keynoted or note blocked. That is the BIM standard. It's actually the national BIM standard, but that's the BIM standard for anything that you do on a military project. So just kind of an FYI on that for everyone. Okay, so now let's look at how to get these notes into a note block or a schedule and onto a sheet. Okay, so that is an actual schedule, and we'll go down here to note block schedule, and we have to pick what family it's associated to, and then we'll go ahead and click OK. Now here's where all the meat and potatoes are, right? We want to definitely show the number, and we want to definitely show the note, okay? And then we'll get into this filter thing here in a second, okay? And then we want to sort by number, and then we don't want to itemize every instance, just like the keynote thing. And then as far as formatting and stuff, I usually get rid of this blank row before the data. I don't know why that's like default. It kind of drives me crazy, but okay, so we have keynotes on here. Now let's go ahead and drag our note block onto here, or yeah, our note block. Ba-boom. Okay, so here's the same thing. It's basically a schedule. Everyone's kind of seen schedules before. And we can see here it's kind of reading the numbers and our note blocks, as it were, on the view itself. Okay. Now the problem that you run into with note blocks specifically is filtering by sheet or filtering by task, however you want to call it. Yeah. And that's where this filter parameter kind of comes into play. Okay, so in my opinion, if you're making a set of shop drawings, design drawings, whatever, those drawings are task specific, meaning that like for plumbing, for instance, you would have a set of foundation drawings, level 1, level 2, level 3 drawings. On the sheet metal side, same thing. You know, maybe if it's a really busy set of sheet metal shop drawings, you break it out by supply return or even by system, right? Air handler 1 or something, right? I'm just kind of coming up with stuff off the top of my head. But in general, you will have a standard set of tasks or a task specific set of notes for your drawings. Okay, so that's real important. So what we can actually do, and that's why I made a single type here in the beginning, is we'll say edit type, and what we're going to do is we're going to say that this first set, we're just going to call this foundation drawings. So I'm going to make a new type, and we'll call this notes for the foundation, or notes dash foundation. Okay, and then our filter is going to be the same thing, notes dash foundation. So if you have a type name, you can have your filter match. Okay, and then we'll make a new set of notes, and maybe this is notes dash level 1. And we'll make a new type, notes dash level 1. Ba-boom, here. And then let's go look at our schedule. Okay, so right now we don't have anything in here to filter this. So we're going to add our filter parameter to the schedule. And then in our filter is where we're going to start breaking things out. So our filter is going to equal foundation, or I'm sorry, notes level 1. We don't have any foundation notes right now. That's why it's kind of acting like that. And a way we can do that is we can grab all of these, and we want all of these, to be our foundation notes. Notes dash foundation. And if we go back to our note block and look at our filter, we want this to be notes dash foundation. Ba-boom, and it's starting to show up. And we don't need to see our filter column, so I'm just going to right click and say hide column. Okay, and then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this, and you could say note block, you could say foundation notes. I'm just going to say notes dash foundation here. However you end up naming this, you know, it'll kind of make sense based on whatever your task is. And really, you know, by rights, everything should always be in caps lock. Don't kind of forget that when you're looking at texting. We'll just kind of call this foundation notes and say this. Air, I didn't say this right, device is pretty, and then also blue. Yeah, so make sure that your text is always capitalized. Yeah, and then we can kind of refine this a little bit better if we want. We could also go into the formatting if we wanted to and say that the number will be center justified, and the note can be left justified. That's fine. And then we don't really have any different text types in here, but we can kind of see this kind of getting refined over time and looking a lot nicer on here. The other thing that I also do usually on my note blocks for a sheet is get rid of the grid lines, and normally I have different text types, but we'll just call this, we'll say this is 3/32. This one's schedule. Oops. This one's 3/32, just for fun, and then we'll see what that looks like. Yeah. So this is kind of how you can get in here and start refining these things down and stuff like that. Yeah. Now, as far as switching this out from sheet to sheet, let's go ahead and duplicate this view. Or I'm sorry. Let's break this out. duplicate as dependent. So maybe this is 2 halves of the same floor plan, okay, and maybe this is one side here. It stops here, and we'll pull in our annotation crop, and this is the other side, and it grabs all of these, pull in our annotation crop, right? So we'll call this one can be east, never eat shredded wheat, oops, east, and we'll call this one west. Now, on the west side or the east side, doesn't really matter. Here, we'll just hide this in this view. Oops, element hide. On this side, maybe this is our level 1 view. Okay, maybe these are our level 1 notes. And then on this other side, the west side here, maybe these are our foundation notes. So those can stay. Okay, now what that means is we need another schedule, and we'll duplicate this, and we'll say rename, and we'll say level 1 notes, ba-boom. And then we'll make a new sheet. New sheet. And what do we got on here? This one has, oh, it's got the main, so let's delete this, remove it. We'll call this one east, and this one is west. Yeah, and on the west, did I say this was level 1? Oh, this is foundation. So west is foundation, so we'll drag and drop foundation notes onto here. And level 1 east is, or this is level 1, sorry, so level 1 notes. And you can see how, you know, technically they're the same notes. So here, let's start changing these. So if these are level 1, maybe this is note 2. And we say these are not pretty. Not very nice note, but. And then say it is also red, because I don't like red. Boom, and we'll change the number to 3. And again, you could call this 1 and 2. So here, let me show you that. So maybe this is note number 1, and this is note number 2 here. And if we go to the other side here, and maybe this is note 1, right? And we copied this over to note number 2. And say it's also blue, and we get rid of this, boom. We can delete this and copy this over. I'm going to scoot these over so I don't have to deal with all that. So you can see how the notes, it's still reading that one. And you can see how there's kind of a little bit of management to do in general, right? Because you're kind of manually filtering things out, generally speaking, when it comes to the schedules and things. But using the filter is super useful as far as task-related notes, yeah? And you can see on the level 1 notes, you have note 1 and 2, and on the foundation notes, you have 1 and 2, but they're different notes, yeah? Because really all you're doing is filling in text parameters, yeah? So that's the real difference. Okay, are there any questions so far on what we've sort of covered? Nothing? Okay, so let's get into sort of another type of workflow. And this, all we're really doing is making new types. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this over in inside the family here, and I'm going to change our sketch. So maybe the hexagon, is that a hexagon? The 6-sided object here is for notes, sheet notes, and maybe our circle here is going to be for RFIs. Okay, so we'll click OK. Same parameter, etc. All we're really doing is changing the shape, and we're going to add a visibility parameters to these. So if we select these two items, our label and the masking region here, we can say that this is going to be our RFIs, our RFI visibility, and this is going to be type-based, okay? And then maybe this one here is going to be our notes visibility, and we'll just say notes, okay? And this is also type-based. And we're going to move this back down on top of itself. So I think I went down a 1/2 inch, okay? And then the last thing we need to do, this is kind of driving me crazy, it needs to be centered here. Boom, there we go. I feel better about myself now. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is we need to check our visibility settings. Okay, so notes. I forgot a step here. Let me close this. And we are going to edit this family because it already has the different types in it, the foundation and level 1. I didn't close the family out before. So if I copy this 1/2 inch, oops, not 6 inches, 0.5 inches, change our symbol here. Actually, we'll change this one because I have the planes to snap to. So this is going to be our RFIs. Note, RFI, type-based, ba-boom. And this is going to be our notes. Yeah, and you could have as many of these as you wanted. Obviously, if you get into like 50 or 60 to manage, it's probably not a good idea. You know, I would say probably 5 is the max as far as visibility and symbols go. You'll probably run out of shapes at that point. But you know, whatever works. So I'm going to make a new type here, and we'll call this RFIs. And RFIs is turned on for that one, and our filter is going to be RFIs, or RFI, whatever. Notes foundation, RFI is turned off. Notes level 1, RFI is turned off. And RFIs notes is turned off. RFI is off here. So if I hit apply, okay, ba-boom. Let's save this bad boy and load it back in. And we're just going to overwrite, including the parameter values. Hopefully our notes don't go away. Yeah, ba-boom. And now if we grab this and change it to an RFI type, our symbol will change, right? And then you'd still have to add your Goldilocks arrow here, right? But now you can start referencing things to the same object almost. So even if I got rid of this leader and we started stacking this off to the side, we can see that there's going to be 2 notes associated to this and 1 RFI. Yeah. And this is really powerful, right? Now, obviously, you got to go in and make a new schedule. So we'll duplicate this and we'll just call this RFI notes. RFI notes, or open RFIs. We'll call that open RFIs. We'll just say open RFI. RFIs is kind of funky looking. And then our filter is going to be RFI. Oops. RFI, ba-boom. And then we'll say this is in question. I like blue, green. Okay. What sheet did I have that on? I think we want to go to this one. Yeah. Deactivate view, and then obviously bring in our RFI note block here. Yeah, so we can kind of see how powerful this is. Yeah, now one of the drawbacks to dealing with these note blocks as they are is the fact that it's not super easy to copy these around. What I normally do is as I start making these, I'll have them off to the side, and maybe we'll have, you know, I'll start making these and kind of just keep these off to the side as they make them. Yeah, because as you go ahead and you start editing these, you know, maybe maybe instead of green it's yellow. I like yellow, right? But as you, maybe you're 5 sheets away or something, and you don't have this one specifically filled out, when you start changing the numbers and stuff, you have to make sure they all kind of match up. Yeah, so it's real important. It's sort of a con, I guess, to the note blocks themselves. I think these have a lot more versatility to them compared to the keynotes. Just from a management perspective, there is a little bit more back end to kind of go into, but it's important to understand kind of what's happening here, how the filter on the schedule works, and the power that you have just by adding some text in a box for a family. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Yeah. So, like I said, moving forward, oh yeah, there's one more thing I wanted to show you guys. So when we're making a drawing, okay, whatever it is, it doesn't matter if it's a sheet metal drawing, a plumbing drawing, I'm just gonna draw some lines on here, and maybe, pipe goes up here, whatever it is, right? Maybe there's a question related to where this pipe comes up, okay? Maybe this is note 3. 03, ba-boom, and see RFI, we'll say RFI number 10, still pending response for riser location. Okay, whatever it is. And maybe we add a leader onto it, maybe we don't. Just kind of see what makes sense for your drawings, okay? The other thing we need to do is add a revision cloud. Now, if any of you guys have really messed with these revision clouds, what you'll notice is they always want to be intelligent, okay? They're too smart for their own good. So if we go ahead and add this revision cloud, it's an actual revision cloud that lives in the model, and it's associated to the title block. Okay, so this is both good and bad. For revisions, this is awesome. It is outstanding, okay? For clouding drawings, it's not so good at times, okay? So here's a little bit of a little tidbit workaround. If you go in and we just draw this cloud, wherever it's gonna be in our sketch mode, maybe we want it to be like this, you can actually grab this, select it, and cut it, and then cancel out of your sketch mode, and we'll just say we want to discard, or I'm sorry, I don't remember what I just hit. I think I was supposed to hit yes. We'll cut this, discard this. Are you quitting? Are you sure? Yes, I was supposed to hit yes. Wait, why am I losing my mind here? Hang on. Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We can delete this anyway, because it copied onto our clipboard, and we can paste from our clipboard. And what this does is it turns a cloud into a line, but it turns it into a detail line, but it's not intelligent. So it doesn't mess with your title blocks at all. Okay, so if you're ever looking on how to make or wondering how to make clouds on a drawing without it being an actual revision cloud itself, this is how you do it. You kind of have to trick the system. This is the only way I know how to make clouds. Yeah, but this is kind of the workflow that we're going to follow moving forward. If I ever ask you to cloud an RFI or an open response or something, or, like maybe we did a set of plumbing drawings, we didn't have the cabinet shops on there. I want to make a special note block for things like that, put it on our drawings and kind of cloud what we need to cloud. Okay, are there any questions related to this? This is going to be our new workflow. I will post a family that we need to use moving forward. And I'll probably post a project, like a 2019 project, that only has the schedules in it. So you can bring the schedules and you don't have to build them from scratch. Yeah. Any questions at all? Nothing from anyone? You guys make me sad. No? Alrighty. So that's all I really got for today if we don't really have any other questions. Again, this is going to be required on Maui Big Island projects, especially for our notes and things we need to convey. I don't personally recommend keynotes, but you know how to use them now if you want to. Note blocks are the way to go. Okay? All right, everyone, have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thanks.